Back to the weekly Unreal Engine Twitch live stream. Sorry, I was just poking Alex in the face because it's what we do before
It's pretty normal.
we start these all out. Anyway, so hi, I'm Chance. This is Alex. We're your community team, and today we've got a special guest, Max Planck. He's a technical lead over at Oculus Story Studio.
In the couch.
Yeah, he's over there on the couch. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, he's like he's really here.
He's virtually on the couch. Alex is trying to give him a high five. It's not going to work out though. We've tried.
Can we do it?
Yeah, it's almost there. Anyway, so we're going to talk a little bit about the approach to Henry and building it and what Oculus Story Studio is all about. They're doing some really great work in VR right now. We think that there's going to be quite a bit of really great pieces of content come out of this these guys, and yeah, I'm really excited to see more than just Henry. I mean, Henry is awesome, but yeah, so we're really glad to have you here, Max.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks. I watch this stream. I try to watch it weekly. It's always fun to be watching what the community is doing. You know, I've only started using Unreal now for about a year. Well, UE4 is only about a year old, and
yeah,
these streams are great. So thank you.
Yeah, no worries. That's why we do it. So we're super glad to have you on. And talk about everything. So before we get started, let's hop over to the Unreal News. Shelly, if you could, about that guy up there. Great.
Bam.
There it is, full screen. So preview 3 for 4.10 is now available for your breaking pleasure. Download it, find all the problems, and let us know about them. No,
Yep,
I'm just
all
kidding.
kinds of nice new fixes
So
in there.
Yeah, over preview 2, there's quite a bit more stability built into this one, and as we get a little bit closer to 4.10, we can't tell you how valuable it is to get this kind of feedback from you all. So thank you very much. But it should be available on the Epic Games launcher now for you to download. And yeah, 4.10 is probably not too far off at this point.
Yeah, we're getting pretty close to getting out the door. Honestly, yeah.
Hopefully, if we can pull it off all right.
It's nice when everything feels like it's actually on schedule.
Yeah,
it's nice.
Totally. So yeah, check this out, see what's coming, and yeah, if you, as Steven's reminder here, remember if you find any new bugs here, head over to the Answer Hub and let us know so we can get them on the list to fix.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, we've got, oh yeah, I just wanted to remind one more time, next Thursday, November 5th, we are in San Francisco at GitHub HQ, giving a number of different talks there, just training sessions on everything about Unreal Engine in general, working on 2D content. We're going to give a talk about lunch here.
As well. It's actually a talk about lunching.
It's pretty good, yeah. There's a couple of us that are really good at lunch, so.
This is definitely my favorite discussion. Is,
there's the CCP guys coming out to talk about working on mobile VR experiences for Gear VR. So if you're in the area, if you're interested in mobile development using UE, this is something I would encourage you to register for. And yeah, I won't be there, sadly, but a lot of the team will be, and so we hope to see you there.
Cool.
Still plenty of tickets left.
Awesome. I didn't know you guys were coming to San Francisco.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
you should.
I should check it out.
You absolutely should. Yeah. If you're there, just I'll shoot me an email afterwards. I'll get you in touch with the people. Boop.
Cool. Yep. Thank you.
So if you missed last week or the week before that, you
basically the whole month
would not know that we did a very large game jam celebrating a year of monthly online events where we invite everybody in to make something great. So this was the biggest one we ever had by far. Over 450 developers at the end of the day came in and completed over 170 games in just about a week's time frame. So pre-registration numbers were a little bit higher than that too. And people were teaming up all over the place. It was really an awesome event. We are still kind of recovering from the lack of sleep and some of the things that came with a week turnaround to get all the results out. But we have posted online everybody's all the results, all the winners and everything. So before we get into those, we won't go into super details since that's all we did last week. But I want to call out a special special shout out to all our sponsors again. Algorithmic, SpeedTree, Side Effects, and NVIDIA.
Really fantastic stuff.
Thank you very much for tossing things our way, and swag and prizes are on their way out. So
we got a nice picture of like the giant pile of boxes, and
we've been chasing everything down all over the place. If you have won a digital reward like a license from something, you should expect an email from either us or SpeedTree, Algorithmic, Side Effects in the next week or so we can make sure we get those sent out to you. So congratulations again to all the winners. We are just super excited that the event was so successful. Thank you everybody for participating. Can't wait to do another big one like this again. All right. Next up, we have. I'm driving the mouse left-handed. Thanks, Alexander.
I got it. Here, help you out.
Yes.
Bam. There you go.
All right. So you may have seen in the past we talk about the Sense of Presence video series that we've had on. It's kind of a 4-piece documentary, and the very last video launched earlier this week. It's the future of virtual reality. So we talked through like what is VR, creating content for VR, and how we can do storytelling in VR, and now the future of VR, where this is all going. So there's a lot of different. Hey, there's Henry. I recognize that guy.
Hey.
There's a lot of different people that just like industry leaders giving great information about the state of VR right now and what everybody's doing and how exciting it all is. So if you're interested at all, I really encourage you to go check out these videos. They are fantastic.
Yeah, they're great. Very inspiring.
Absolutely.
Awesome you guys did it.
No, I think it's cool because, I knew this was all going on, and I know most of the people in these videos, and I still go back and watch them, and it just like gives me that same buzz that I had at Oculus Connect. It's just like, oh man, this is so awesome. So it's, it's great. I can't say enough awesome about it. And last piece of news for today, there's a Unreal Dev Grant winner, Outlaws. They were it's a couple people from the VFX crowd that are now doing full-length video in VR. Unwinnable did a really great write-up, as you see as Alex scrolls.
This is like a really big,
long
nice
form.
one. I read through the whole thing just earlier, and it's actually really interesting to see how they kind of got from, it was like a comic book to like a full production thing that they're doing.
Definitely. Yeah, and what's really great here is it's it's not a game. It's an experience. That they're going to try to build with the real-time engine, and I think that's super awesome about it. And you can they talk through all of their methods and how they kind of the design process, how they came to this project, and how they made the decision. So it's
and I see that happening more and more. A lot of the visual effects industry is starting to use real-time game engines like Unreal.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
It's when we hear from time to time, it's always that iterative process. Instead of waiting for something to render overnight, you have the ability to make the tweak and kind of see it, in not baked real time, like if you have to do like some lighting tweaks, things like that, but you see results pretty quick. And iteration in any creative process is kind of really paramount. So.
Yeah, you should call it "What you light is what you get."
Yeah,
really weak.
yeah, that's actually really good. I'm gonna write that down. Wait, that's not already patented, is it? Did you?
No, I just came up with it.
All right, so wait, we're gonna race for that one then. All right, I'll have Alexander hop over now to the community spotlight, and then we'll get going. So,
right.
yeah, you had Answer Hub people this week too.
I do. Actually, you're right. We should start off with that.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Answer Hub.
Yeah, in before Katatis comes and shows
no,
up.
Katatis is already top of the chart. So Katatis Studios still top the charts because he's got his crazy high, like 838 karma right now. So he's going to ride that, and I'm sure he's going to keep doing Answer Hub stuff to ride that as long as he can.
Hey, 4 figures or bust, Katatis. Just kidding.
Shadow River again. Really amazing, always up there.
Shadow's been
and M House again. So all of you are pre-registered for the badges, something we're still getting into the forums, but all
the bits
three
are
of you
slowly
guys are
moving
ready.
from here to Seattle. That we sent them by pigeon, so we put the badge in the mail and mailed it. So
sorry. So
hopefully it gets there in time to get up to the server. But yeah, you should look out for those pretty soon.
Yep. All right. Cool.
And we've got, I'm losing my earpiece.
All right. So
I'm the best.
Now we've got Community Spotlight. We've got some really awesome plugins. Since we did a lot of focus on the Game Jam stuff, we didn't have a chance to do a proper Community Spotlight last week. So some cool stuff built up. This plugin is an augmented reality plugin for UE4, and basically it uses markers in that kind of way that I think a lot of people have kind of seen the like a cell phone, and then you have like a marker down and you can see a 3D model around that. But now you can do it in UE4, which is really sweet. And Shelly, we have a clip for that, I think.
Now let's see this. Oh, look at that chair. Wow,
right?
That's great.
Yeah, anyone who's ever played Eye of Judgment or any of those other like PSI games or whatever, probably familiar with this kind of concept. Really useful for just innovating new ideas, I think.
See, I remember the first time I saw something like this in the, there's a rock too, nice. With the, what was it? Oh, the 3DS at E3, and they're showing, their augmented reality solution. And the first thing I thought of was like board games where you can't, necessarily have the space to put out a board. Like if I'm playing on a plane, like I'd love to play something with my wife on the plane or something.
And all the pieces go, like all the papers fly everywhere. It's like, no, the pieces.
Hey, yeah, exactly. But it's much better than having actual pieces.
Oh
on
yeah,
the plane,
yeah.
Right? So,
It's really cool.
but yeah.
All right.
Cool.
And then there's a second video on this. This is by Adam Horvath, by the way.
Cool.
And the second video on here is just him with the cell phone, just displaying it actually like running.
How
on
it
the phone.
works.
Yeah,
Wow, on the mobile phone, that's impressive.
Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
great.
So one here and then one there. All right. So next up, this is
Grappling and climbing.
Void Goat. I didn't have the full video for this because it's like 6 minutes long, and it's just a guy running up and down. I think you can get the idea here. Void Goat was kind enough to share this really good blueprint setup he's made for climbing up things and doing the ledge grab and pull up, and jumping ledge to ledge. So if you're doing anything with that parkour style, mind you, he didn't give you all the animations you need. However, one of our moderators points out where you can get some animations for it. But basically, if you want a climbing system, Void Goat's got one set up for you. It's in the community content tools and tutorials. But really good stuff. Yeah, I'm going to hit that. Cool. Next thing, Grizzly32 has made another plugin. You might remember him from doing the UE4 Arduino plugin.
Beating us to the punch.
Yeah, beating us to that because that was something I'd been working on. Don't mind that. Don't mind getting shown up at all.
And it was a really good implementation.
It's
too,
really
right?
good, yeah. So way better than what I was coming up with.
So FX Builder.
So this is actually an FBX builder. So this works. It's kind of a plugin for the engine, but it works with Maya. But
okay.
so there's a full-length long video here where he explains exactly how to use it. Again, not going to play it. It's a super long video, but just to give you an idea, what it does is it fixes your origin point. I know a lot of people have asked us about like, oh, how do I kind of predict where my origin is going to be? And it's always at the 0, 0, 0 point in your 3D modeler. Well, this will actually kind of like, I think he kind of describes it as it adjusts everything, imports it with the proper origin where you expect it, like the proper pivot point where you expect it to be, and then it offsets everything so it's back to where it should be with the pivot point where you want it. So this is just really great for importing and having the pivot where you want kind of little plugin.
Oh, that is awesome.
That is
we definitely need something.
Yeah,
like
this
that.
is more not so much like the flashbang fancy, but the practical. I'm going to use this every day kind of fancy.
Huge.
So
Yeah, it's funny. We talk about tools all the time and the art pipeline, right? Like a lot of times you end up building art for its implementation in here, and this will allow people to kind of build art the way they want to, and not have to think about things like, pivot points and specific transforms. So, really great work, Grizzly32, man.
Yeah, he's always making. I think he actually has a couple other plugins that I just haven't gotten a chance to highlight.
So pull requests.
Yeah, pull requests, pull requests, buddy. We're really down for some of your stuff. I think that'd be really nice.
Nice.
All right. So I think, Max, now that we're kind of out of all of the news and community stuff, you got a video about Oculus Story Studio you wanted to kind of show off to everybody.
Yeah, so go ahead.
No, it's a good primer of kind of what our studio is about. Because as much as we're trying to make these storytelling experiences in VR, we're also trying to inspire a new medium, a new industry, and the video kind of goes into details. I'm not sure we're going to see the whole thing, but it gives you a taste of what we're about, and you can see the rest of the video on our website.
Cool.
When I was younger, my dad would take us to some of the art theaters to see some of the films from the 50s that were 3D.
Just because I don't know, I'm going to ask if we have
paper
audio
glasses.
every time. Great.
Awesome.
Just finished.
And there's no
the
echo,
episodes,
right? No echoes?
And someone showed me an article about Oculus, and I said, I got to see what this is. It was my first experience with VR, and literally came out of that and said, this is going to change everything.
When we started Oculus, we really thought that the major focus for VR was going to be games. Now that the Rift is sort of maturing as a technology, and really virtual reality on the whole, the potential is really there to take people to these virtual worlds.
We are seeing the birth of a completely new medium. Storytelling in VR is much more complex. It's kind of a three-dimensional storytelling. There's multiple things going on at the same time.
What would it be like to be in
I know
an
him.
arena with the matador and the bull as their spar?
That guy.
You are seeing that dust get kicked up in your face.
Adrenaline is pumping. You tend to only remember the details that you need to know, and everything else goes fuzzy around you. We're going to embrace that.
Could we build an environment that was so real? Could we really make you feel you're there? Crawling around, getting your head right up close to the plants, and really feeling that sense of scale, and then, oh my God, what is that?
The possibilities of VR are much more vast than we initially thought they would be, because you matter in that story. The way you experience the story matters, while the way I experience a movie doesn't matter for how the movie is told.
Okay.
Cool.
Well, you can.
Pretty good.
Story Studio is a collection of artists, creators, and technicians
All right.
who
Thanks
are...
Ooh, nice effect.
Yeah, thanks for the burnout there, Shelly. Shell's on point.
So
with
yeah,
the
the
transition.
video goes into a little more detail, talking about how those of us who saw VR and came from places like filmmaking, my background is in computer animation. I worked at Pixar for 10 years. And when I saw VR, I loved the type of games I could play in it. But I also realized it would be an amazing medium to tell a story in. I worked on WALL-E. WALL-E is one of my favorite films that Pixar's made, and I got to work on it for 2 years. And I thought, wouldn't it be amazing if I just had a story experience with WALL-E and Eve, if I was there with them in that space? And that's, when I saw VR, that's the first idea I went to. And I said, we need to start doing this. We need to start using a game engine to make an experience that is not something you feel like is a game. It's not something that you necessarily have a controller in your hand and you can do it wrong and there's an obstacle. It's just be there. That presence is so powerful on its own that if you tell the story while you're there, you have so much more connection with the character.
Right.
And that was the plan. We also realized that for this to be a medium where people buy VR so that they're seeing these story experiences, we can't be the only ones doing it. We need to have I want to have peers. I want to have a bunch of studios out there who are making this thing. So every weekend there's a new VR story experience that comes out along with all the VR games that are going to come out.
Right.
And so part of our mission is to inspire a new industry and to educate a new industry. And that's why we're all about sharing everything we're doing, talking about it, being very open, because right now is not the time to be competitive. Right now is the time to build as much content makers as possible.
Definitely, and you really get that feeling at Oculus Connect, you know, being around everybody there, just, you know, it's great seeing kind of an industry come together to solve the great problems that we have in these early days. Or they say problems, but really they're just challenges, you know, and everyone is kind of throwing ideas off of each other and inspiring each other to then inspire the first person back, you know, to keep that rolling. And so
You can definitely see how there's a lot of people just building off of each other's ideas, and we keep.
Oh, yeah.
And it seems to be building in the right direction, in my opinion. So.
Yeah, and like that's, you know, whenever we found out at Oculus Connect that you know the team was releasing the Henry project, you know, that was like for us that it kind of struck a chord inside. 'Cause that's, you know, why we released the engine in a lot of ways too, to get.
Yeah, we learned from you guys.
Yeah, to put it out in people's hands and see what people are capable of doing. And it actually brings back so much to us to say, hey, have you tried this or that instead? And we're like, oh, you know what? We learned from doing that as well. So it's been nothing but, you know, mutually beneficial for both us and the community. So yeah, so thanks for sharing that. You know, we got it pulled on here, and Alex will be kind of toying around in it while we chat. But yeah, I'm anxious to kind of get in myself and dive a little bit deeper into the project and see how you're making specific approaches to, you know, cinematic storytelling in virtual reality, right?
Yeah, it was actually, as I said, I've only been using Unreal now for a year when UE4 came out, and using it, using the tools in it felt very familiar, even though most of my experience is in software rendering. You know, I'm familiar with Maya. I was familiar with Photoshop, Mari, which is a painting tool the VFX industry uses, and we use Substance Painter, and it's just as good. It's great for building game assets, and it felt good. Unreal is this really artist-friendly app. It was cool how I could get in and start putting together logic through blueprints. I didn't even have to start coding in order to start prototyping stuff.
Oh, look at how he
Oh,
follows
yeah,
the
watch him-
ball.
yeah,
That's
he's
so
tracking the ball.
cool. He's just like, oh, there you are,
So
buddy.
great.
Let's
Yeah,
hug.
oh, look how happy he is.
Oh.
That was one of the big discoveries on Henry was having him
Oh,
just
he's
look at
sad.
you.
Yeah.
That's connection, right? You don't get that
Yeah.
in a film.
Yeah.
You're actually like, whoa, there's no fourth wall here. There's no screen. He's actually looking at me. This is a story being told to me. And it was powerful. It's a simple trick. It's not using anything very sophisticated. It's just using UE4's animation blueprints with some transition states and a very simple like look at IK.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, you talk about hopping into a game engine specifically for this, and we briefly touched on it before, but and you kind of mentioned it a little bit here too, but it kind of takes the need for a bunch of engineers to actually work through, like for instance UE4, you don't have to have a ton of engineers to actually script a lot of this stuff or to quote unquote code it out. I mean, you say empowering artists. I always joke that the most powerful person at a studio now using UE4 is your tech artist, because they can make the art, they can make it look good and perform well, and then they can make it work, right?
Yep. And we're the type of logic we're running in our experience is nowhere near as sophisticated as what a game would be using, because a lot of what we're doing is telling a story that there's a lot of elements to it that is just a matinee playing. It's just a linear narrative. And then there's touches of interactivity that make you feel like you're present and the story's responding to you in little ways. But we're not ready to go to a place where you have complete agency in a story, because it's so hard to tell a good story while the user can do whatever they want in that space. So we're just trying to pick those little moments where it makes sense. Like Henry just looking at you where you are in VR is simple but powerful.
Right, and when we chatted, earlier this week, one of the things you had mentioned that really struck me as something I hadn't really thought about yet was the idea of, an actual storytelling session where you have somebody sitting there reading from a book and reacting to the audience, right?
Yeah, we're trying to go to the heart of what original storytelling was, sitting around a campfire, and a good storyteller sees the audience, watches the audience, feels their body language, their reaction, changes pacing, changes maybe the order of events based on, the audience is getting bored, I'm going to speed things up, or they're getting really excited, I'm going to milk this for what it's worth. We have a lot more information because we know where you're looking, we know where your head is, and now we know where your hands are.
Yeah.
So we can use that to drive story decisions. And I think that is why we're saying that this is VR filmmaking. I think because we're doing what you do whenever a new medium comes along, is you sort of steal from the mediums you know.
Yep.
But I think this is going to be a mix of a game, theater, and film, and it'll turn into something new.
That's fantastic. Yeah. It's funny because there's always been the whole "our game's art" conversation, and every other medium you said are considered that. What are we going to call this at some point, right?
I actually am trying to get my word for it is immersives.
Okay.
Let's call them
Yeah.
immersives. See if that sticks.
That's good. Yeah,
Immersives.
and you're even seeing the language of this. It's not like I'm going to watch a movie or like I'm not going to watch. I'm not going to view. I'm not going to go play. It's
be there.
Yeah, I'm going to go experience, right? So we're
Yeah.
seeing a lot of things labeled as experiences because that's really what they are, and that's why you don't see a whole lot of marketing material around a lot of these because we don't quite have the same. A video doesn't communicate that experience. You can watch a video of a VR experience, but being immersed in there is, especially in one that reacts to you like this.
It's frustrating because we have heard people say, "Oh yeah, I've seen Henry," and I'm like, "Wait, did you see the video?
Yeah.
that we put out, or did you actually see it in VR?" And there's a big difference. It's why a lot of our trailers are us kind of talking about it and trying to convey what it means and the ideas we came up with. But you guys know that you can't talk about VR, you just have to show it.
Yeah,
Right, yeah.
Trying to explain bullet train to people is like, but it's really quite the most amazing thing you will ever
Yeah,
experience in
yes.
your life. I assure you, sir.
Definitely. Yeah, and so you're building all this out in Unreal Engine 4. Can you tell me how you came to some of those decisions?
Yeah,
For choosing an
we
engine.
can actually go back to why we're using a real-time game engine.
Gotcha.
I think there's a lot of exciting ways to use VR. The 360 video movement is a really cool way to capture live action. I especially like it for documentaries, a way to sort of capture a moment. Clouds over Sidra is one of my favorite 360 video experiences. But when I saw VR, I was completely blown away when I could move around. So I had a DK1 and thought it was really cool. I played Half-Life 2 and got sick, and played a bunch of other stuff. And then I got to see the DK2, and as well as a prototype that eventually became the Crescent Bay. I went down to Oculus, and that just blew my mind. I realized that if the DK1 could evolve to the DK2 in that short of a time frame, this industry is evolving so fast. And the positional tracking was that element that made me believe.
Right.
And when I thought about it, I was like, you know, it's going to be really hard. It's a hard problem to capture live action so that you can move around in space. But I can do this inside a game engine. And who's to say that you have to use a game engine to make a game? It's a real-time rendering environment. And so we said, let's try to use Unreal to make an experience. And when we started picking up and using it, it felt very comfortable, very familiar. It was a great tool. I mean, it already had so many cinematic tools in it, like Matinee, that we thought it was great. I do have to say, we are very excited about Sequencer.
So are we.
Yeah.
Yes.
Matinee is great, but we definitely hit its limits pretty quickly. And we're looking forward to the ability for artists to work on the same shot or a story beat at the same time, and that Sequencer is going to allow for that.
Yeah, definitely. It's being built like 2 offices next to me, and so I'm just
Yes.
like walking there. Hey guys.
Hey, how's it going?
What's going on?
Yeah, is it
nothing.
coming along
I'm just,
okay?
You know, seeing if you guys want some donuts so you can show me what you're working on.
It's more caffeine.
Yeah,
sugar.
yeah. Let's make this work. No worries. Well, yeah, no, and that's great. Like, you know, we talk about, we see more and more people adapting or adopting the engine for any sort of media at this point. You know, even if it's just, you know, rendering out a scene that they would normally use, you know, another program for, they'll use UE specifically for iteration, you know, and that fidelity. And seeing it being adopted by more and more storytellers, you know, people that are building cinematic experiences, I think that we're going to see a lot of that show up in the future.
I do have to say that a lot of the stuff we're making now, even though it's mostly linear in terms of a beginning, middle, end, here's a story, the little bits we're adding, like on Lost, we actually wait until you look in a particular direction to cue a moment. Same with Henry, there's a moment where you kind of have time in his home, and we only have him come out of his kitchen when you look over in his direction. And the ability to look at your eyes, no matter where you are, if you're standing or sitting or off to the right or left. And also now that we have touch, that we know where your hands are,
Yeah.
the ability to add reactivity to where you are, I think is going to be a key part of this medium. Touch for me, just like when I saw positional tracking, when I got to see my hands in VR, that was another watershed moment that I was like, all right, this is very cool. It's intuitive. It feels great. Now how do we tell a story when you can touch things?
Definitely.
Which is going to be a hard problem.
Yeah, I think we talked about it on the Bullet Train stream, but touch was the second time. Positional tracking, like just like you said, the first time, and touch the second time was like, okay, something has been introduced that we cannot live without now. You know, and that's how you know, if you take it away, it hurts. So that's how you know, okay, great, this is something that is really, really powerful. How can we leverage this to, you know, really, I guess, utilize this new medium for things that, you know, people haven't even thought about yet.
It's a funny story. At Connect, at Connect this year, that was when Bullet Train came out, and Henry was being shown at the same time. And we were getting people who went from Bullet Train to Henry, and they were like, oh, Henry's so cute, I really like it, but it kind of feels old-fashioned because it didn't have touch in it, right? We hadn't designed it because touch was just brand spanking new, and we're like, yep, we know. Now we're thinking about how to bring touch into an experience. It's going to be a really hard problem because part of what we want to do is have an expert storyteller telling you a story. You know, I'm used to making experiences where the director is very explicit with, here's what you see, then here's what you see. And now we're allowing a user to look around, so that takes a little bit of control away from the storyteller. And now if we're like, all right, we're going to allow you to pick up objects, what prevents them from picking up an object and throwing it at the head of our main character?
Right,
It's like,
exactly.
do we have to respond to all those choices? Probably not. We have to tailor the experience so the choice you have all fits within what the director is intending you. Right.
Right.
So it's going to be this interesting corralling of giving you a feeling of choice and agency, but still it's okay that you feel a little tethered to where the director is taking you and you enjoy the ride.
It's kind of like you see that a lot in games, right? Like in Fallout, where you can grab this item but not that item, and there's a certain level of, well, okay, that makes sense, and you go about your life, right?
I've seen this though, that if you do the classic game thing where there's a prop that's glowing and you know you can interact with it, and then there's the stuff that you can't, because VR is such a trick of the mind. If you're like, wait, I can pick this up, but I can't pick this up.
Yeah.
It's hard to accept that. While we're totally cool if it's like, all right, I can walk up with my controller and push X next to this thing, but I can't do it next to this thing. You're totally fine with that. But in VR, it's less forgiving.
Yeah, we definitely experienced that in a couple of different things. I know playing Bullet Train, there was a moment I tried to pick up a shell off the ground, and they hadn't put in the stuff so you can pick up shells off the ground, and I'm like, give me the thing.
It's the same as reaching up
It's
and
broken.
yeah, reaching up and hitting the little
the
handles inside
rings
the
and stuff,
the train, right? So yeah, they added that later. It's like, yeah, people want to hit that, so we should let them hit that, you know. Well, that's great. Yeah, we're super glad that you're using UE. Some of the things you and I talked about, before and even now, it's like getting artists moving in using blueprints, and I've even told you, like, even as a coder, like, I use them now just for quick iteration, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I am surprised. Most of the team at Story Studio is technical artists. There's 4 of us with engineering knowledge. My background is I was a global technologist at Pixar, so I had to do a lot of code writing / technical problem solving. But it was surprising how little code we had to write to make Lost in Henry. We could prototype stuff using a blueprint, and because our stuff was not too heavy-handed, we didn't really have to go take a prototype we did in Blueprint and then write it to be in C++. It just worked. Damn it!
Did you just get nerfed?
Yeah, they just nerf ambushed me.
Yes! Was that the UT team? Did we send them out there? No.
Oh my gosh.
Damn it. I don't know what that was. All right. Nerf dust off me. What was I saying?
Blueprint?
Yeah, we were talking about blueprints.
I'm telling a lot of studios out there that you actually don't need to worry about building up a huge engineering team. I came, back when computer animation was starting, you had to get a team of PhDs, computer scientists, to build an engine, build a pipeline, build digital content creation tools. Now all of that stuff is available off the shelf and pretty cheap. Already the Unreal, as powerful as it is, you can use it for free.
Yeah.
And we use Maya, which has several different tiers of entry.
Yeah.
And even the highest grade, professional grade, is only $180 a month, which is really cheap compared to what we were used to. So you can actually buy all these pieces, put together a pipeline using the out-of-the-box import-export pipeline that exists, and get up and running. And we actually, those of us who have engineering skills, we were spending most of our time kind of putting on our technical artist hat and prototyping experience and not creating pipeline and infrastructure. So
yeah, we've had
it's a cool time.
Yeah, we've had teams on the stream, before that their entire game is in Blueprint. We've seen a couple that have shipped, indie developers and full-on professional funded developers. They're like, our engineering team is one just in case things come in, but he works in Blueprints a lot. So we'll sometimes take network code down and see what we want to do with that, but for the most part, that it handles a lot of needs. It's great. I love visual scripting. It's like I said, as a coder, it's hard for me to go back to code a lot of times just because I like that real quick, doop, 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 and then go. Me and Ray talk about this all the time. When it's like, when's the last time you've written code? And it's like, we don't want to talk about it.
I used to make games, I swear.
Yeah.
It looks like you're trying to break the experience. I think you saw one of the tricks we use.
Yeah, I
You saw
tried to
this-
duplicate him to see if maybe if I had two, it would be extra cute. And actually, it made like a evil, like scary one.
a
Yeah.
nega Henry.
Yeah, yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
Please
the
tell
one
us.
thing Inigo Kiraz, he's on our team. He's known as IQ. He's the guy who made Shader Toy. He did a lot of great work to make Henry look the way he does, but he had to hijack a lot of the emissive channels of the shader network and re-implement some of the lighting stuff so we had more control. But he could do it using the material editor. We didn't really have to,
Oh, that's great.
to bend the renderer too much.
Oh, that's awesome.
But
Wow.
because of that, if you duplicate him,
Things get
you
weird.
lose some of the skills.
Yeah, someone was asking how you guys did the fur. I don't know if you know off the back of your hand, but that's really
Yeah,
impressive
yeah, I
stuff.
do.
Oh, wow.
It's just a bunch of texture cards.
Oh, okay.
It was very clever rigging by Bernard Howe. He's our character lead. He also came from Pixar, and so it's just a lot of polys. I think his fur alone is 70,000 vertices.
Oh,
No, I'm sorry,
okay.
70,000 tries. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
And we just knew that Henry was going to be a big part of our polygon budget. I think when he's in his home, he takes up about a third of our entire poly budget. And so the cool trick Inigo came up with to make it look softer is it's a bunch of texture cards that are sort of stacked on top of each other with just a simple texture. And to make it look like they're interwoven with each other and to soften them up, he used a trick that actually I believe Nick Donaldson of Epic came up with, where you just have a temporal dithering pattern that is passing over the texture. So it's essentially what you can decide is, I want to make this part of the texture look like it's 50% transparent. And so what you do is one frame you make it fully opaque, the next frame you make it completely masked.
Yeah,
Next frame you make
that's been covered in some training streams.
you just dither it, and then if you want to make it 25%, then you do it.
Just kind of tweak it to taste.
Yeah, it was discrete in that because you're dealing with discrete number of frames, you couldn't dial it to any arbitrary number of percentage, but that was enough to sort of soften his edges and make it look good. And it was very performant. So it was kind of it's a order independent transparency trick. We did try playing with making the render be a forward render.
Okay.
And then tried using MSAA in order to get really nice, soft anti-aliasing. It was just too much work to re-implement all the features we get out of a deferred render that Unreal gives us.
Gotcha.
It would have also been harder for us to have shared the project with the world. So
Yeah.
we kind of we're hoping to make as much of our product without bending the engine too much. We will begin customizing and begin bending the render and trying new things because we want to show the best of what you can make in VR. But we just weren't getting, it was going to be way too much work. And as I said, we're not a very big engineering team. So we went with a clever approach instead of the expensive one.
You talk about Henry being the budget and kind of how you approach some of the fur. What are some other things that what were some of your other development approaches, other things that you learned while you're trying to make a cinematic experience in VR in Unreal Engine?
Well, as I said, we hit the limits of Matinee pretty early. Matinee was great in terms of have this animation play at this frame for this amount of time, bring up the light intensity here, move stuff around. It's got good controls for that. But the problem we had is that we have about 8 minutes of animation, and we spent a lot of time on animation. We come from a place where we're used to 3 seconds of animation taking a professional animator a week. That's kind of, at least that's what I knew at Pixar. And so we didn't quite have the resources to do that. But I think by the end of Henry, 10 seconds of animation was done over the course of a week.
Gotcha.
And so that means you can't have one animator doing it if we're going to fit it in the tight deadline we had. And so we actually had to bring on a team of 8 animators in order to animate across the experience. And in computer animation, we're used to breaking up the work by shots. Whenever the camera cuts away, that's a good way to say, all right, this animator is going to animate this shot, then this animator, and so on. It's hard to do that in VR. because, for one, you don't have a cut. And Matinee is not really set up to have multiple animators working together in the same scene. And so what we had to do is create sublevels for what we called story beat, because we don't really have shots. It's just, here's a logical moment of acting.
Got it.
And so we actually created a sublevel, and each one of those sublevels has their own matinee, and this is where it gets ugly. Each sublevel had its own copy of Henry.
Okay.
Oh.
Because matinees are built where you can only refer to the actors in the same level that the matinee exists in. So there's no way we could have a single Henry and then have several matinees across sublevels referencing it. This is why we're excited about Sequencer, so we don't have to pull off tricks like
Now,
this.
did you have any weird in merging those things over? So did you merge those all into one level with multiple matinees, or did you leave it as multiple levels?
No, we kept it as
separate
levels all the way through the end. And you don't get to see that on the trailer because that was simple enough that we actually broke that across 2 animators, but we then just stitched it together because it was simple enough in scope. But we did have to write a tool that is available in the trailer that we call Stage Manager that is essentially responsible for knowing, all right, here is a logical group of what we call story events. And we have something called a queue order. So we can say, this group of story events needs to all play and then end. And when those story events have ended, I know to play the next queue group. And so you could say Stage Manager was the guy telling the matinees, all right, it's your turn to play. And when that matinee finishes, now it's your turn to play. And also invis that last act, that last Henry, and viz the Henry for this level.
Got it.
And so it was a pretty simple plugin, but it allowed us to do things like we could start the experience and tell Stage Manager, begin on story beat. We called it H210. So you could say, all right, begin halfway through Henry so I don't have to watch the whole VR experience to see how my lighting is.
Yep.
So we also allowed a kind of chapter skip so you could sort of jump ahead or back queue groups, kind of like DVD skipping around.
Shelly, cut over to the monitor real quick.
I had to go look up the actual plugin just to see what it is, and I love the icon you guys have chosen.
Already calm, I'm the stage manager. That's great. Oh, so good.
So there's actually a couple plugins in here. Really cool. Thank you for that. Nice.
Yeah, and you talk about having to transition in between. I'm losing my microphone here, so it's super awesome.
Yeah, it happens at least once a stream where someone's mic gets a little dislodged.
Super weird. Sorry, people that are viewers. Anyway, you talk about transitioning between these levels, like you'd shut one down and bring them back. And you and I talked a little bit about. I'm losing my headphone now. You and I talked a little bit about movement in VR. It's another one of those things, that people are coming together to find solutions for. What was your way to handle those transitions? Like from I'm in scene A and then I'm not and I'm in scene B again.
Yeah, we tried what we're calling teleports.
Got it.
So an ability to say, all right, you're moving from this scene to the next. We do have teleports in Henry, but they're not very noticeable because there's a prologue intro where you kind of get Henry's backstory. That's the part where Elijah Wood, our narrator, is kind of telling you, here's Henry's story. He's a hugger, but he's also pretty spiky, and so that has its own problems. And then we transition to you being in the home. And we did try teleporting you within his home as the story was unfolding. And for Henry, we felt like the teleports were jarring. That we noticed that a teleport, the best way a teleport works is that you actually blink down to black for a very short period of time and then blink up from black. That's one approach we liked. If you do a hard teleport where it's suddenly you're looking at something and then in the next frame you're looking at something completely new, it's weird. It's good to introduce change blindness, so a little black frame and then back up.
Yeah, it's kind of like you
so we
blink
found
and
that to
then
be
change.
Yeah, we found that to be effective, but we also found that even with that, you had to, you kind of got comfortable where you were. Like, all right, I'm here, I know where I am in Henry's home, and if you put yourself somewhere else, it took you some time to reacclimate. And so it broke a feeling of, I'm here, I'm grounded, and I'm enjoying that. And Ramiro and Sashka, our creative director, they were like, you know what, it's not adding anything. It's a neat idea, but it's not helping the story. I think we will eventually start finding stories where the feeling of teleportation will be good. Right now, because I think we're new to VR, it's jarring, we're not used to it. Maybe we'll get better at it with time and we can use it in more approaches. But I think right now where we're at, it's a great device to build tension.
Yeah.
Because it'll make the viewer feel like, whoa, I don't feel grounded. I'm feeling uneasy. And that would be a great thing to use in a thriller or a horror experience.
Well, at the same time, it lets them kind of, it provokes some thought about their new environment, right? Like if they're somewhere for a number of minutes and then they're somewhere else completely, they have a lot of new information to take in. And so you can kind of play with that, how comfortable they are, to either say, all right, spend some time, explore the space, and then, you know, maybe the character comes in the door, and it's like, okay, great, I understand, that's where the door is, you know.
Yeah.
Or you can just put them there, and then the door kicks open, and it's like, oh crap, there's a door there, and there's a guy with an axe, and you're like, running, and everybody dies. So.
I do want to, you mentioned about movement, so there's the movement through teleportation, so place you in a new spot. There's also taking the camera and trucking or dollying it.
Yeah.
So giving you a feeling of like, all right, you're here, but then we're going to actually move the camera on top of where you're moving in your physical space. We tried it even though we knew that it would probably lead to sim sickness, and it does. It's uncomfortable. But on top of that, from a creative standpoint, it didn't feel good because it broke believability.
Right.
You know, a good story needs to feel believable. You know, there's this willing suspension of disbelief that you have when you're watching a film. And there's only so far you can stretch that until someone's like, you know what, I don't get this. I don't feel empathy for these characters anymore. This world doesn't feel real. And VR is less forgiving. And so the more you have movement that is not motivated by actual physical movement,
Right.
it doesn't help. It's not helping. So on top of sim sickness, we have not found a case where it's worth it.
Yeah, and I've done I've experienced a number of, you know, projects that kind of try to mix that, and that's where you see it the most, right? Like it's the worst when you go from I am being, you know, locationally tracked, and then now I'm just now I'm doing this thing. I didn't do that, you know. My body's still in the same place, and you know, I've seen it work whenever there's like a split and you're supposed to be like sitting maybe in a chair on a train.
It's like when you have a plausible explanation for being moving.
For why you're being
seems to make
dollied,
it better for some reason, but yeah, otherwise it's just terrible.
Yeah. So go ahead.
One of my favorite gaming experiences is Eve Valkyrie, and that's something where you're getting a lot of movement, but you still feel like your surrounding is seated.
Right. Yeah, that's a good one. I love Eve. So much fun. All right, well, we're running a little close on time. I know you gotta hop out of here pretty quick, so thanks again for chatting. But what's next for Story Studio? What are y'all doing? What's next on y'all's roadmap for Henry or whatever else you got going on?
Yeah, so you know, right now we're making experiences that are about 10 minutes long. We're a studio, but we're also a lab. We wanted to pick a series of shorts where we could test genres. So Lost was our first experience. That was just more of, can we do this?
Right.
But it also is our awe. You know, VR, the first thing you want to make in VR is awe-inspiring. And then Henry, we were actually going for comedy as a genre. And
Did we lose him? No, I think we lost him.
Oh wow.
No.
It was kind of like a perfect freeze frame too, because for a second I thought he was just like taking a second to gather his thoughts.
I'll shoot him a quick message.
Oh no! Come back! Come back!
Boo-doo boom. So close.
Live. What you gonna do?
All right. Alex, sing us a song.
No.
Okay, don't sing us a song.
No, I'm not gonna sing you a song.
All right. Let me see if I can shoot him a quick
yeah, sorry guys. Interview's over. That's how we do it now. We just shove him out the door.
No, we'll get him back online here. In the meantime, I wanted to talk through what we can cover, kind of some of the things about next week. So I know we're gonna have another training live stream on Tuesday, for sure. If you've missed out on those, do you know what we're talking about this week?
It's not gonna be one of the AI ones. It's either going to be a continuation of match 3 or.
I hear him.
am I back?
Oh.
Yeah, he's back.
Okay, we'll continue that in a second.
Magic.
Hey.
All right, good. All right, so I was just talking about. All right, so Henry was our comedy piece, but we turned out it was more empathy. There's a lot of sad moments in Henry that had strong impact. For Bullfighter, we're working on. You could see maybe some concept behind me.
Yeah.
That's going to be our action piece. We're going to see what is it like to kind of keep you on your toes in VR. And then Dear Angelica is It's a really cool piece. It's probably going to be one of our more artistic pieces. The concept is that you're seeing a girl's imagination through illustration. And so you're inspired by comic books and going really far with our stylized, surreal look. And the content or the story being told is pretty serious. It's more of a drama. But you're relating to this girl through how she sees movies she loved growing up.
Well, that's great.
And so it's also sort of loved and we're kind of leaving behind.
Gotcha.
So it's very cool. Sascha Unseld, he's directing Dear Angelica. And then we have Bullfighter. And then we have another project that we are not announcing yet, but we're going to be working on that.
Secrets.
2017.
Very, very cool. And as far as some of the other tech items that you're looking into for like where things in VR are going, what you'd like to see technical wise. I know we had talked about, you mentioned the forward renderer earlier, and I know at Oculus Connect, the content team was talking about extending our mobile renderer to get that forward rendering, right?
Yes.
So you and I talked about a couple of other things that you'd like to see as somebody that's coming from the CG world into VR and game engines.
Yes.
What are some of those?
So definitely we're interested in looking into a forward renderer. The tools we were used to in visual effects in terms of lighting, we had a lot more control, a lot more options. We do like how Unreal just kind of has a simple set of lighting tools, and then Lightmass's GI is very powerful, but we want to extend those features a little bit to allow us to shape light in a certain direction. Also, we like the anti-aliasing approach of MSAA for VR. And because we're making experiences that are more controlled, we know where you're placed and you can kind of only walk around in a certain space. We don't need some of the benefits you get from a deferred renderer. And so we think it's also a more optimal rendering solution.
Gotcha.
We also are interested in looking into tessellation shaders and adding subdivision support for a game engine. We're used to being able to rig pretty low-res cages for our characters, and that's a better workflow for rigging and for animation. And then at render time, you subdivide.
Got it.
And that's something that RenderMan has been doing since Jerry's game, so for 20 years now. And tessellation shaders inside modern GPU architecture and OpenSubdiv, which is a Pixar open source project, is making it so I think it's within reach. It may not be performant enough for VR, which is crushingly hard to get something at 11 milliseconds. But I think it will lead to better sampling, and it'll get rid of that faceting we're seeing on our characters. And then finally, we really want to push where rigging tech is. The idea of only having bone-weighted deformation and morph targets is powerful. You can do a lot with it, and we'll probably be using it for some time now. But we're used to features like pose-space deformation, spatial deformers, being able to have sort of arbitrary deformation, more complex logic. We're starting to put that into our Maya rigs and then baking it down to bones into our FBX pipeline and then pushing that to Unreal. Right. But it would be awesome if, in the long run, we could actually have some of that real-time complexity, that rigging,
inside the tool set.
Inside Unreal, right? Yeah, because we're used to, but the way we were used to working is you think of a mesh as a bunch of points, a pool of points, and all the spatial deformers are just operating on points.
Right.
It's less efficient than working with bones, but it gives you a lot of the flexibility we had to make the kind of Pixar characters that we worked with. So those are areas we'd like to explore.
Yeah, that sounds great. We have a couple questions, and I know you got to get out of here, but do you have any closing thoughts?
No, I think it's an exciting time. Part of our mission is to show how easy this is. So one of the reasons we gave away Henry Trailer is to show that it really wasn't a lot of technical work. There wasn't a lot of coding. The Henry Trailer was done with a small team. We want to show people that we make mistakes, that the way we slap stuff together is part of a creative process, and so it's we want to demystify this idea that you need to have a big team, you need to have lots of engineering resources. So I think that a lot of people can get into this type of storytelling, this VR storytelling, with teams of 3 or 4 people, indie-sized teams.
Right.
And that's why we'll continue to give out our projects. And the Henry trailer was just us getting our feet wet in terms of what it was like to what we're calling open asset. And
Yeah.
we're hoping that when Henry finally comes out on the consumer version Oculus Rift, we will also give away the source project for that as well.
Oh,
so
that's
people can
awesome.
see that.
That's great. Yeah, that's one of the reasons we do a lot of the same, with our tech demos too, is so people can kind of dive in and see the wizard behind the curtains. There's a lot of stuff in there. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, you're faking a lot of this. It's like, that's video games.
Yeah.
you know?
Anytime we get Ryan Brooks up here, it's just another like, oh, here's a bunch of lies we told.
Yeah.
that makes it
A bunch of
look
lies
really
we
good,
told,
but they're
yeah.
lies basically.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Smoke and mirrors.
Yeah,
Yeah.
smoke and mirrors.
I'm just gonna throw one question, and then we can wrap. How are y'all going about handling audio in VR?
Oh yeah. So we're right now for Henry and Lost, we use WWise
Okay.
integration into
yeah.
Unreal.
Yep.
That it's I'm new to WWise. We just started learning it for our projects, and it seems like it's a really robust pipeline. We're also using the Oculus Audio SDK,
Yep.
the Oculus Spatializer. Unreal's Spatializer is good, but it's only doing pan and attenuation. And the Oculus Spatializer is considering the head model. It's considering reflection and bounce, and it has a lot more settings to really tune, so you get a sense of if an object sound is coming in front of you high or in front of you low or behind you. While the pan and attenuate approach, you really can only tell what's happening on a plane.
Got it.
And so when we started using that, it really added some richness
Yeah.
to our workflow.
Yeah, I'm sure when you look up, you feel the actual,
Yeah.
it moves relatively from here to in front of you. So I think that's imperative whenever you're working with something like spatial VR, right? Yeah.
There's Tom Bible. He was our audio lead for Henry. He did do something cool for the Henry trailer where he actually broke out the composition of the music into stems, and he placed them spatially. So, your main sound, your piano, and your drums were in front of you,
Oh,
and
cool.
your softer sounds, your woodwinds, and your I think there was a cello or something that was off to the side. And it kind of had this interesting feeling that you were sitting there while an orchestra was in the dark
It's like
playing around you.
Virtual surround sound. I imagine like you're walking around like a little band,
Yeah.
just kind of in every
But
direction on you.
We debated that. I think so we did that for the beginning Henry trailer stuff. But when we did the main Henry experience, we found it was kind of distracting if music sounded like it was coming from a well-lit home.
Right.
So that we just make it as stereo. So
Got
no
it.
matter where you look, it's sort of in the background. So
Got it.
there's a lot of interesting problems to be solved in audio, and we've just started scratching the surface.
Yeah, definitely. I know it's a question we get asked a lot, and I know we're working on solutions to it ourselves, both from a tech and a design perspective, right?
Yeah.
I think it's one of the next big mountains to climb. So, well, cool.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. Max, thank you so much for dialing in and chatting with us. It's been super informational. I'm gonna
Thanks, guys.
toy around with the project here with Alex after the stream, and
Yeah.
hope to have you back on
You
sometime.
can break
soon.
it pretty easily.
Yeah, sure. well, we did. I want to see Nega Henry.
Yeah, the
again, so-
evil, the inverted one. Yeah.
But yeah, so I look forward to chatting again sometime, and yeah, have a great rest of the day. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
All right, and thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll be back again next week. We've got something kind of special planned for Thursday that we're kind of not talking about yet. But Tuesday we've got a training live stream as well. So 2 o'clock, feel free to dive in and ask your questions. We'll have an announced post up on probably both of those in the next few days. So, all right, that's it. Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Shelly. Thanks, Clint.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.